Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Julianet Muchiri from Kenya, and I work with NAID. And today, NAID is honored to hold a discussion on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Now, as every one of you knows, the year 2015 is pretty important for the development agenda. Having gone through the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, from 2000 up to now, the year 2015 holds an important area in the question of development. Where are we going, and from here onward? So today with me, I have Francis Maberi, and I have Santiago. We're going to discuss the question. The new SDGs are just a smokescreen for aid that benefits a few. So to begin with, I'll ask you to introduce yourselves, Maberi and Santege, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for scheduling first of all this hangout and bring everyone on board. I know it's been a huge struggle since we are meeting from various places and the challenges of technology. My name is Francis Maberi. I am Action 2015 Global Co-Chair on the youth team. As you may be aware, Action 2015 is running in over 180 countries, and approximately 2,500 individuals and organizations are coming together to form a global movement, calling on leaders across the world to give specific attention to the decisions, especially the two major decisions that are coming up this year. One of which is in September, when our leaders will be adopting the new development goals called SDGs, and another one in November, when these same leaders of ours will be making another important decision on climate change. The world over, the young people are central. Because, for example, in most of African countries specifically, over 78% of the populations are young people. In Uganda, where I come from, over 52% are ages below 15 years. So 2015 being a very crucial year to mobilize global citizens, to call on our leaders to consider people's key asks and voices into this development process.
Okay, thank you very much, Maberi. Now we're going to hear from Santiago.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the founder of NID and also all the key members who are supporting to make sure that everything works as we are today. And I'm very happy to be part of this network, and I'm quite sure that I will contribute to my best level to make sure that we move forward to ensure that we achieve our goal. As you can know, Sierra Leone has been hit with a very difficult situation just after the world now is Ebola, and a lot of things that has been, I mean, affecting us in terms of education, health, and other aspects of the economic. So we are working very hard, and it is time for us now, as I am 15, to ensure that we fight very hard to ensure that we try to achieve where there was no achievement under the and Millennium Development Goals by using the the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a permanent thing that not only achieving but also making it sustainable. So I'm very happy to be part of this, and I'm quite sure and I'm ready to learn from each other and also share our ideas together to make sure that we achieve what we want to achieve 2015. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much, Francis and Santiago. So you've actually described the situations in your countries, in Uganda and Sierra Leone, and actually that will form part of our discussion because it's important to know what's going on in the ground before even we come to other areas the agenda. But to begin with, I'll ask you a controversial questions that we've handled here in NAID before, because basically this is what is related to our discussion today. So I'll ask you, do you people believe that, or do you actually agree that Africa needs aid? Aid being aid from foreigners. So we'll start with you, Maberi. What do you think?
Uh, Thank you. It is a huge question, and it has been asked for a lot of time. Yes, maybe Africa needs aid, but for me, I would think that the most important issue that Africa needs is not just aid. I think we also need trade, because we need to have a situation that is sustainable. Like we are talking about sustainable development goals. How are we? The Millennium Development Goals made us reach some way, but how can we sustain this development? For me, I think only aid alone cannot sustain the development that we need in Africa. We need more investments, more job creations in Africa, more budgetary allocations to agriculture, more environmental sustainability initiatives. I think all those can be supplement to aid. Aid alone cannot cannot bring about sustainable development in Africa.
And what about you, Santiago? What do you think?
In my opinion, I think Africa, I can't say we need aid. What we need is about skill to ensure that young people are trained to fit to the growing markets in terms of job and in terms of also skills to ensure that our communities and also our country as a whole, people are able to contribute to ensure the development of that country. The problem is giving aid sometimes also make us so lazy.
Sure.
Though we don't have much, but sometimes it makes us lazy because we always ask for giving people to give us, to give us, to give us. But if you are teach how to, like, let's say, let's use the Bible. It says teach a man how to fish, so that he can able to fish more and also able to learn other people. But if you are always receiving out all the time, which means you will not be more equipped to even find something for yourself and to even be sustainable. And if we are talking about sustainability in the 2015, this Action 2015, we need skill, we need power to ensure that we're able to sustain it. Let's say, for an example, if let's say Ghana came into Sierra Leone and also, let's say, construct a school, and if those people who are there in that school, who are going to be there permanently, did not able to know how to sustain that school, did not know how to maintain that school to become so sustainable, all the time looking for support, and if Ghana did not have money again to support, how can you able to continue with that school? How can you able to run it? So, just as an example, Africa need skill. If people are trained, to ensure that we have better people who are well trained to, I mean, in technology, in new innovation, or like as we are having a lot of people who are coming up with startup businesses, support them with that. I think we can able to stand strong and able to compete to the world trade, which is the WTO, to ensure sustainability in 2015.
Okay, Santiago, but I'll just ask. So I actually agree with you that we need skill, eh? But
Yeah.
where are we going to get this skill from? Is it institutions of higher learning? Do we need people from outside to come and train our people? Where exactly do we get this skill from? What do you think?
Yeah, we need people. I mean, in Israel, people, I mean, let's say in Africa, we have people who are trained outside of Africa, at, which means they are equipped. But just because they are not able to impact it to young people in Israel or other African countries, making us not, I mean, equipped to able to stand for ourselves. So we still need people outside, but we also have, I'm sure we have people who are already trained in Africa and can able to impact that kind of knowledge to other people in Africa as well.
Okay. So now, I think
Ca-
we've
ca-
agreed on aid. Yes,
can I
Maberi.
make a supplement? Can I make a supplement?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to cite an example of South Africa. South Africa and Ghana are some of the countries that received honors from, especially from World Food Program, for having contributed to reduction of hunger and housing. But I visited South Africa. I visit South Africa frequently, and these are some of the discussions South Africa constructed over 5 million houses and gave them to the civilians at a free cost. From a general look, this would look like government has provided for its citizens, but the citizens want to participate in the development. They don't want to just sit behind and wait for handouts from government, whether houses, whether roads, whether factories, whether industries. We are saying people should participate in development. And one of the reasons why corruption, for example, has worsened in Africa is because of aid, I would say. Because when these funds come, they are exposed to the bureaucrats. And when we have economies where the citizens are not participating actively and strongly in the development of the country, you find that all this aid that comes to Africa ends in the hands of only those few bureaucrats in government institutions. I think we need, if aid is coming, I think we have to be critical. We need to empower people in Africa to hold their leaders accountable. Of course, we cannot totally do without aid, but we have accountability mechanisms. Can the citizens follow up what is coming to Africa in terms of aid? I think we need such a mechanism as well.
I actually agree with you, Maberi. I think what we lack is systems, to follow up the money, because if you've been following Professor Jeffrey's research, he says that, okay, fine, Africa actually needs aid, but not just aid that, that just comes, but aid that is officially assisted development, which means that there are systems, there are mechanisms to follow up the money and what it's doing. On the other hand, just as you said, there's no way we can have money coming in form of aid, and the citizens are just there. The citizens must also be proactive and follow up the money. So
Yeah.
I think we agree on that. Now let's move on to the MDGs. Before we even begin on the Sustainable Development Goals, I want us to focus on the MDGs. Do you guys think that the development plan under the MDGs did it steer Africa further towards development, or have the MDGs failed? What do you think, Maberi?
The MDGs have changed the world, including Africa. We cannot distance ourselves from that. But the challenge has been the process of implementing these development initiatives. Like we said at the start of our discussions, are people involved in the process? That has been the weakness of the MDGs. And we are saying, as we roll out in this new development framework, it shouldn't be the usual business. Last time I had a visit, a visit at African Union, where I interacted with the African Union Summit delegations. And I seem to see a conflict, because Africa's contribution to the new development framework has been the common African position. And the big question is, are our government institutions ready to roll out this new development framework? How are they preparing themselves to run the framework in line with the common African position? Because we might find scenarios where some states are concentrating on the common African position and losing out the global view of the SDGs. I think the MDGs, back to the MDGs, they have led us somewhere. We have seen more young people, especially those under 15 years, go to primary schools. We've seen more health facilities being constructed. We've seen improvement in infrastructure, but the challenge, okay, someone can say we went for quantity. I think it's time to double check on the quality. For example, we've had very many roads since 2000, but these are roads that are lasting for 6 months, 3 months, and are being washed out. That is a challenge.
Okay, okay, Maberi. Santiago, what do you think? Have the MDGs failed? I mean, have they made a difference? What do you think?
In the first place, the MDGs actually was very good when it was planned in terms of coming up with such kind of way to achieve the, developments in the whole world. But then also, I think one of the problem is how the implementation was organized, because and also the planning sometimes also gives some problem because people who are down there who are really facing the problem were not consulted in the planning process. I think, and also if in terms of achieving those MDGs, if the money that's being given to government and other organizations, most of the time in terms of the implementation or to know the problem affected the people in the communities. The people who are affected or the poor people who are in the community are not affected. People sit down in their offices and plan for them instead of involving them in the planning process so that they will know exactly the major problem affecting the community and what exactly they need to achieve or they need to solve. So these are some of the problems most of the time affect the MDGs achievement. In some other areas, as reported by UNDP, some areas like there are some improvements. There are some achievements, but also still, like for us in Sierra Leone here, things become so different now as to regard when they were planning it, they were not even thinking that Ebola will occur. But now Ebola has come, and all other things that that have been leading us to achieve some certain MDGs. Now we have failed it. Now we have gone back to zero. So all these things are things that we are that are affecting the achievement of the MDGs, and even to call it as a success. So these are my points.
Okay. You make a very important point, Santiago, that the MDGs during him failed to actually go and consult the people at the grassroots.
Yeah.
That is one of the, if these are the people who are actually affected, if there are no hospitals, if there are no proper schools, these are the people who are actually affected. So in your opinion, how can we ensure that we actually get to the people at the ground, especially in the framework of the SDGs?
I think I would suggest that if we are planning something good for the people or to achieve the SDGs, we need to go down to the community and consult them, and in doing needs assessment or research to ensure that we know exactly the problems affecting them and what exactly they need. You can't sit down in your office and then plan for them. You have to involve them and you have to go there, not only involving them, but you have to go there as well and consult them and sit down with them in forum discussion or preparing questionnaire to ensure that you get the right information for that particular community or that particular province. So I think this is the kind of way we think, or I think we can able to do in order to achieve the sustainable development goals.
Okay. I can also come in slightly.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah. One of the things we learned from the MDGs was multi-stakeholder partnerships. I think during the implementation of MDGs, One thing that stood out as a lesson we should take forward is that we cannot work in isolation. Government cannot work in isolation of the private sector, for example. Uganda cannot work in isolation of other countries within the regional bloc, within Africa, or within the United Nations constituency. That is, I think, one of the issues that we need to take forward. As we look at the SDGs, I think we need government especially and other development partners, we need to find a mechanism of bringing on board private investment, such that the private investments can be translated into social development. I think that is one of the ingredients that I would think, for me, I would think that we need to take forward if we are to realize a sustainable and meaningful development during the SDG framework.
Maberi, if you will, what do you actually mean with private investment? Are we looking at the private sector? Are we looking at other companies? What are we looking at here?
We are looking at the private sector.
Okay, so yeah, I think actually that's an important point. You know that in the past maybe it's been the aid agencies and then the governments and then to the people without actually involving the private sector. So that's something that we should note. Now, before we go on, yes?
I want to say something.
Okay.
Also, another problem we are facing in Africa in terms of pressurizing government to ensure that, set goals are achieved, is about the civil society sometimes is divided in the sense that government always manipulates into civil society. Government always try to pressure or try to bring in someone who is really outspoken, talking about the things that are happening in the community or that they are not doing very well. So they try to bring those kind of people and give them position. If a civil society try to be independent, try to be satisfied with what exactly they are doing and what they have, I think things will get better and government will be held accountable fully. Other than that, I think there will still be some problem in order to hold government accountable.
Now that you actually mentioned the civil society, I'll give you an example with Kenya. A few, you know, there are very few, there are very, not very many, but quite some people in the civil society that are very outspoken. And every time there is something, going on in the society, for example, there's land that has been grabbed, the government is doing something, and these people come up and talk and mobilize. You always hear some people saying that these people have actually been paid by foreigners, So I was just wondering, how can we, the people, the citizens, ensure that we actually let the civil society do its work? Because at the end of the day, it's the citizens that actually benefit. I wonder if you come across such a thing in Uganda, because in Kenya it's always there. At some point you hear people saying that these people have actually been paid by, for example, UC or something. What do you think?
Yes, actually, let me come in on that.
Yeah.
Actually, in Uganda, it has come out. It has almost become a slogan that whenever I speak out on something, they say, "You have been paid. You are looking for your selfish interests." But this has been my response. That okay, I have been paid, so I am working. Then what are you doing such that you can also get paid? Because I think you are given money for something you are doing. It is not like you are stealing money or you get my point. I think as civil society, we need also to be prepared to answer those, to respond to those concerns head on, instead of sometimes camouflaging, pretending. I think we need also to come out and deal with those challenges head on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Now. Yes,
Let me,
Santiago.
yeah, can I come in? Also, for
Mm.
us here, sometimes I think, whenever civil society is talking about a particular issue,
Santiago.
and you with another organization or civil society who is working in connection with the government will also come out with another counter report. So this is the
Mm.
problem. That is why I said civil society need to, like, you know be independent. And some of the problems normally we
I
face is
agree.
that is in terms of funding. And most organizations speak for the government because they are getting funding through the government. And because of the certain criterias, too much of difficult criterias that organizations normally face in terms of applying for funding in outside, donors, sometimes making the organization to be like crippled, because without funding you can't able to sustain your office and even your good and staff. And if some of those issues sometimes, with some of those issues try to be, solved, I think it will help, civil society to be independent as well, to be able to speak out, because you know that you are not getting funding from government, you are getting funding from outside, so you have nothing to fear to talk the truth, and you say it to dots, and you know that they can't stop you from getting your
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. That I'd like us Santiago mentions like Sierra Leone having been hit by Ebola. It's crippled its development agenda. So the question I'd like us to address is how well versed is or prepared is Africa, in the framework of development, to dealing with natural disasters or epidemics when they come up. How well versed are we? How good can we, good can we respond to these things and make sure that we're not hit hard such that we have to go to point zero again, like like Santiago is saying happened in Sierra Leone. Mabere?
Yes, I think that one was an oversight on the side of the planning for the SDGs. I think that reflects on the on MDGs, because I think in the plan for the MDGs there was no consideration for such occurrences like natural disasters. And even when you look at the 17 SDGs, nothing is being suggested along those lines. Maybe as Africa and also as independent nations, I'm aware most of the governments have departments for disaster, but the challenge is that during the allocation of budgetary allocations, during the budgetary allocations, some of our governments will be concentrating on achieving these numbered SDGs. And you might find that sometimes we forget about these natural disasters. I think it's a weakness, it's an oversight. I think as we call on our leaders to ensure that these SDGs are implemented and are meaningful to the citizens, we also need to continuously remind them to reserve some energies, reserve some resources, and be prepared to handle the challenges of national disasters. We had the same in Uganda. You might have heard of landslides. I think we also had the same. I think in was it Malawi, somewhere around southeastern Africa. We've heard of those disasters. We've heard of this issue of Northern Africa, especially the Arab Africa, of people rising against governments. I think we need to be prepared for that. I think we need also to, in that line, we need to remind our governments to reserve some energies along those lines.
Well said, Mabere. Actually, I agree with you. So probably that's a recommendation we can, give to the relevant organizations and even organizations that we're dealing with, or even government, to consider the unplanned for or unexpected disasters. So moving on now, um, and this is like the basic question that we are asking today. So do you think that the SDG is just another label for aid? Is just a label that we're using to to say Africa still needs aid, or is this an actual sincere development agenda that can actually work for Africa, or is this just a label
Yes
for?
and no.
Okay, what do you mean?
Yes and no. Borrowing from the experiences of SDGs, someone might say it is the usual business. It is just a change of name because, for example, at the time when especially African governments were getting independence, if we had time to archive those speeches, you might find that most of the issues we are pushing today were mentioned as priorities during independence. But where are we? We are always repeating the same scenarios, the same stories. We are talking about immunization. We are talking about security. We are talking about disasters. We are talking about infrastructure. We are talking about technology. These are issues that were mentioned during independence. We are talking about allocating, increasing budget allocations to agriculture. These are issues that have been mentioned since independence. That is the north side. That is the yes side. But the north side, we are saying, we have the capacity. We are already more than before to cause change. For example, in case we are successful, especially as CSOs, as a global movement, to have a global citizens demand, citizens putting their leaders on pressure, holding them accountable. I think the sky is the limit. This has not happened before. It has been more of governments planning and implementing through donors, through institutions like African Union, United Nations, and citizens just sitting back and waiting for governments to deliver. But the status quo is changing. We are saying the global citizenship is raising up their concerns, is raising up their voices and saying, we want A, B, C, D, and E. I believe if this is brought forward and put central, this generation can be the last to watch challenges of climate change, challenges of an increase in inequality, because globally you agree that about 60% of the global wealth belongs to less than 5% of people. The biggest population globally is starving, and we are saying the starving population should rise up and hold their leaders accountable such that there is redistribution of wealth and multi-stakeholder engagement and participation into the development, such that development becomes for the people and it is more participatory than ever before. And yes, I emphasize that this is not just the user business. Maybe it is user business, but with a new strategy.
Mm-hmm. So actually, I agree with you, Mabere. And let me ask you now, besides the fact that there is more global citizenship now, compared to the period of the MDGs, what else has changed between then and now that would actually make the SDGs work now? Are we looking at more awareness of what's going on in Africa? Are we looking at a youth that is more aware of what is going on and more proactive? What has changed besides the global citizenship of the people?
I think increasingly the global citizens and the national citizens are becoming more proactive. The events that happened in Algeria, the events that are happening in Egypt, the events that are happening in Sudan, the events that are happening in Somalia are an indication that people are increasingly getting concerned of the national resources. People are increasingly getting concerned of increasing inequality. People are increasingly getting concerned of issues of climate change. I think that should be a lesson to our leaders and also an encouragement for us as global CSOs to say people can be the change they want to be, and this is the right time.
Well said, Mabere. So now the other question, Mabere.
Yes.
Talking of approaching this process from a more involving and inclusive point of view, we're talking about the governments, the community, civil society, and all the other people involved, yeah, and even the
Yes.
the international community. The question is, Mabere, who should actually fund the SDGs?
Spot on.
Where will the countries get? Where will African countries get the money to fund the SDGs?
I think it is a challenge, but there is hope. For example, if African countries are minded about partnerships within their constituencies, for example, partnering with the private sector. It is the businessmen who have the money that can develop the economies. I don't know, but to my money that is being generated by the private sector perhaps is more than the money that is coming in aid. We need to maintain the wealth and add value to the wealth, and also bring on board the private enterprise to contribute to the national development. I'll give an example. If a business person A, say Patrick, is starting up a factory, and we are aware that this factory has the capacity of employing 1,000 nationals, for example. Government should have a strategy of ensuring that these factories, these industries, achieve their goals, not just to concentrate on taxing them. Is there a mechanism of making sure that the over 50% of factories that are starting are collapsing in Africa? We have very many businesses by young people, by old people, by ages starting every day. But most of them are closing before their first 1-year anniversary. Many businesses are closing up in Africa, and our governments are not minding, are not making proper legislations, are not making proper resource allocations to make sure that these companies, these factories, these industries are sustained. We cannot, because even the money that is coming to Africa is somehow a taxpayer's money in Europe or in the US or in the Caribbean. So those guys are protecting their factories, their industries, generating revenue to sustain development in Africa. Where for us, our African governments, are suffocating businesses in Africa. That is what I think.
Okay, so I think you actually say that the government should actually give the enterprises, the private sector, give them an environment where they can conduct their business well in just not stop after some time. All right then.
Mm,
Now we've looked at the MDGs and then the SDGs, Maberi. But the
mm,
question I
mm,
wanted to ask you,
mm,
how inclusive do you think the SDGs are? Because you mentioned a while ago that we cannot leave anyone behind. Yeah, that means
mm.
that
Sure.
we can't isolate the people who say female women. We can't isolate people
Mm,
because of where they live, or for example in Kenya, some people living in the northern parts of the country have most always been isolated from such processes. So how
mm.
inclusive do you think SDGs are?
Uh, I think we need to reinvest energy in localization of these SDGs. We need to actually not just increase but emphasize on localization of these SDGs, such that the person even in the lowest and remotest area can associate themselves with the global development. I have not heard of a scenario where for example, there has been an interaction between the national planning authorities and the growing investors, not just those in the formal sector, but even those in the informal sector. We need to have those constant interactions, linking with the rural people, linking with everyone, because we cannot just assume centralizing these policies, these initiatives at the national capitals will translate into a meaningful development and inclusive development. Yes, maybe we have members of parliament, councillors, and other representatives, but those are more of political representatives. They are not economic and economically or development representatives. We need to have a mechanism of where government frequently, freely, and conveniently interacts with everyone, wherever they are and whatever they are doing. That is how we can achieve a development that is leaving no one behind.
Okay. In relation to that question, I think what we're saying is that we need people at the ground, besides the say chiefs and government representatives. Now, how can we harness the power of community-based organizations? For example, I'll give you an example. In Kenya,
Mm,
my country, there are very many small CBUs working in the community. Some of them just have feeding programs for kids in schools. Some of them take care of street kids living in the streets. Small efforts. How can we harness their efforts towards achieving SDGs? We'll start with you, Santege, because you're back. What do you think?
Thank you very much. I can take my organization as an example to that. We are very small, but like I started it, and we are now going in a very different level. We are still operating as a community base, but we are trying to achieve so many, I mean, um, um, criteria to achieve the NGO status. I think one of the problem normally, I mentioned it before, that this small organization, if you look, they are the ones doing the great work in the field. All these big NGOs, when they comes, they ask for community-based organization to work with them, and they also try to like set up a network using those small community-based organizations. And at the end of the day, they give the report, and these big NGOs sit down in their office and prepare a big report, send it to their donors, what the small CBOs have already done. I think the major problem small NGOs have is that a lot of criteria to meet to funding, international funding, or even some other local donors. So in that sense, except if some of those kind of small or some of those kind of criteria are reduced in order to fit to the level of those CBOs, small community-based organization will find it very difficult to achieve, because they will always they will do the job, but they will not carry the credit.
Sadly so.
Yeah.
Okay, Maberi, what do you think?
Yes, I think I want to borrow from Vin, and because actually, when it comes to, for example, funding, I was having a dinner with our CSO working group on post 2015 here in Kampala, and a number of issues were raising up. One of them is that we need to have a relationship between CSOs, whether CBO or NGOs, with the funders, because you realize that, for example, the funding partners are always calling for proposals, and you find that the guys who are seated in apartments, in SCs, the people who are versed with the modern language are writing very convincing proposals, but when it comes to implementation, they are not there.
Yeah.
And these guys who are in CBOs, they don't have internet. They cannot beat deadlines. They are not versed with the modern convincing languages. They cannot compete for the grants.
Yeah.
And you find that it is a circle of the haves giving the well positioned. So I think we need to have those engagements with development partners for them to realize that CBO A or B did not reach this level, and then they should follow up why. Why were they not able to beat the deadline? Maybe they don't have electricity. Maybe they don't have internet.
Yeah.
I think we need to have those interactions.
Okay. Santiago, yes?
Yeah, I think we are all in the same page. These are the problem happening. Most of a smaller CBO organization, they don't even have websites wherein they can able to really tell people out there, and they can't even. Some of them don't even have Facebook page, which is free, to even talk about exactly what they are doing. All those skills. But when it's called for the real work, go to the field. Whom the people know is those small CBOs that do not have internet, does not have I mean, these are the problem that small NGOs or small CBOs organization are facing.
Actually, I add my points here because having worked with NAID, I think for 2 years now or something, NAID actually seeks to get to the people, to those CBOs, the ones working at the community, the ones that you've never heard of, and you won't most often. And I'll tell you this because we asked them, do you have a website, or do you have, so that we can check your work? I can tell you almost, and my colleagues like Paul Shaw can tell you, almost 80% these CBOs don't normally have websites, and because you don't want to recognize someone who's actually, doing something you're not sure of. We normally want to see what actually they are doing. So just as Santiago mentioned, most of these people have Facebook pages. So yes, that is where we get there. But I always find it very, very sad that the people who are actually at the community doing the work, they're not recognized. And so we've done something with NAID. We actually celebrate these people every month, as you guys know, because you're members of NAID. We every month we highlight the work of small CBOs, the work they're doing at the community. So I think us as the people who are, as the people who are in the know, we need to actually get to the CBOs, to the ones that are actually doing something, and hopefully connect them to other NGOs or, to other stakeholders. But I think that's something that the SDGs and the implementation must take into consideration. So I think now we'll move on. We're just about to take a break, although we started late. But before we do, we have 3 more questions. Then we'll take a break. Well,
Okay.
we talked about the question we've just talked about is how inclusive are they? Now, the question I want to ask: do you guys think that SDGs are actually going to be a benefit to all the people, especially in Africa, and not just to a selected few? Just as we are saying, is the SDGs and just going to reach a few people? And of course, if it comes with aid attached to it, is this just going to reach a few people who actually have been doing these things, through MDGs? Are we actually going to make sure that most people in Africa, and especially in the least developed countries, are actually going to benefit from them? What do you think? Santiago,
Yes.
you can start.
Okay.
Yeah. I think if we really follow according to like what we are discussing in terms of involving people in the grassroots level, we should not say, oh, we need to hold our meeting in the state house, or let's hold the meeting at yeah, at Kibima Hotel, and then you expect these people who does not even know, even to find transport for themselves to come to those areas is very difficult. And even when they come there, they will even start looking at the kind of structure, and they will not even listen to exactly what is going on. You have to move and go there. We have to go there to the community and really go there and talk to them, be like them, try to be like them, and they will feel free to express themselves. They will feel free to say exactly what they really need and what is really affecting them. You should not sit down to the office. And so if we really think in terms of, if we are talking about involving people into this particular sustainable development goals to achieve it, this time around we should not sit down in the offices or in the big hotels to plan meetings with the people. We need to go there. They are not the one to meet us. We should meet them and ask them.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually agree. But Barry, what do you think?
Thank you. I think for the question is, will it benefit few people or not? I think more than before, CSOs have been provided the best opportunity on a silver plate. If to mobilize the global citizens, if the sustainable development goals benefit few people, we will have lost as CSOs. It will be the hugest and most shameful mistake or an achievement that we will have made. The pressure is on us. It is on me and you, and NIDE, and Action 2015, and African Monitor, and Action Aid, and CSOs, whether at the grassroots or in the capitals, whether organizations or as CBOs, we need to embrace this opportunity and mobilize the global citizens from wherever they are. CBOs can mobilize citizens within their constituency. Organizations based at the capital can mobilize within their constituencies. I think it is the pressure is on us to bridge the gap between the capital, the power at the capital, and the power at the grassroots. We can no longer blame United Nations or African Union or government bureaucrats. We need to put them on pressure. And the platform to put them on pressure has been provided. I think, yes, it is hugely possible that this time, these SDGs are going to reach to everyone. The levels of benefit might vary, but more, like I said, more than before, this is an opportunity we need to embrace.
Okay.
Yeah, to add, I want to add something.
Yes, please.
We, like, for us in Sierra Leone here, there are some certain community that are divided to constituency and also ward committee development. I think if we really go to like those ward committee and then ask for their plan, their development plans for their ward or for their constituency, I think it will also help us to get everyone involved, and everyone will really achieve and benefits in this sustainable development goals.
Great. Now, Maberi mentioned the AUs, and I was actually going to ask you this. What is the position,
Yes.
and what is the role that the AU can play in making sure that the African countries this time round actually evolve through the Sustainable Development Goals agenda? What do you think? I mean, we've seen the AU. We hear it. We try to connect with the AU, but what can the AU do that will actually enable Africa to move further down towards development?
I think the biggest credit I can give to the African Union is to accept decentralization, to accept emergence of regional blocks like COMESA, like SADC, like East African Community, such that decisions that are made at the African Union can be decentralized at the regional blocks, and then the regional blocks also decentralized to the national capitals, and the capital decentralized to the various ministries, and budget allocation is reflected. I think that is the biggest credit I give to the African Union, because unlike during the MDGs, this time the African Union has provided an input by the Africa Common Position. I think it is within their responsibility as a structure to ensure that this contribution, this commitment is achieved. And you and I as CSOs, we are here as watchdogs. Wherever there are gaps, we will jump on the train and ring the bell and say, here, maybe this has not been achieved. Maybe the process is slow. But as African Union, I think, I don't know whether they have the mandate, but I don't think they have that much to come and follow up on government, say, following up on Rwanda or Burundi or Burkina Faso or Sierra Leone or Uganda, and say, we as African Union, we are here for you. As Burkina Faso or as Uganda, you are moving slow. I think African Union won't do that. It is us as nationals, as citizens, as CSOs, to push for the delivery of these commitments by putting our leaders on pressure, by pushing for accountability, by disseminating every relevant information to whoever may need it. But the African Union won't be moving on the doors of our capitals and saying this is what has to be done. Because these guys, they are in their comfort zones. All what they can do is pass the document like the African Common Position. But they won't have time to come and follow up. It is the global citizens, it's the African citizens that should stand tall and make sure the ingredients of this the ingredients of this document is are achieved.
Okay. Santiago, what do you think?
Um, the African Union is, I can say, is good, but also um, they need to step up their effort in terms of follow up. And let's say one thing: normally, these agreements or treaties or documents that have been signed, sometimes they will sign it, but also to implement it become a very serious problem in terms of putting it into the lower level. And even some of those documents cannot be even published out. And except when a civil society really advocating, trying to tell people, that's the time people will start to know about it. Freedom of information, like making sure that there is a place where people can go and get the information that they are looking for, so that they can be equipped to be able to hold government accountable, or other even government representative like councillors, members of parliament. And those are the kind of tools that gives people the power to really, I mean, hold those people accountable. And the African Union is a very good body. And the only thing I would say, and they are big, they are big, but also one thing they should do is to like relinquish some of the things to the government in terms of individual government. Let's say for Sierra Leone, and then the Sierra Leone have a body which is like the ministry of any other kind of ministry, but let's say for as an example, like the social welfare, which is responsible for registration of civil society organizations in our country here, and other bodies. They know they have a database of all those organizations that are involved and the areas where they are operating. And in getting all those data, they can able to give those organizations power, working with the city council that are responsible for giving out contract to other organizations, I mean to other companies that are doing construction project or other project in the communities, so that these NGOs can able to monitor those people, and they should be given the all the details in terms of funding that has been awarded to those organizations or those companies, so that those CBOs organizations, civil society, can able to know exactly what they are going to ask, and what exactly the money given to those organizations to do if they are not doing the job, and the time that has been put in place to achieve those work, if it did not achieve at that time, then those organizations can have the power to ask them, because they know already they have the information. But if you don't have the information, you find it very difficult to pressure or to hold government accountable. I think these are the things that the African Union, the government, and also civil society should have. These are the chain work, I think, that's supposed to be available.
All right, thank you, Santiago. Now, one more question before we break for a few minutes, and this is in relation to what you just said, Santiago, about freedom of information and availability of information to the people, the citizens. So the question is, does Africa has the technological capacity to ensure that SDGs are actually realized? For example, like you guys just realized before we started this hangout a little bit late because of internet connections, you know. So if the internet and the connectivity of Africa hasn't changed between now and 10 in the last 10 years, what will change? I mean, do we have the capacity, the internet, the technological capacity to ensure that we actually realize these goals? Maberi?
I think we do. We have the capacity. For example,
Okay.
you look at innovation like M-Pesa, mobile money. This was developed by Africans. You look at in most countries, we are running on 4G internet network. There is capacity, but I think there is there is slowness to adapt to new developments, especially technology. I think our people need to appreciate the speed at which, and that must be preached by our leaders, and also for us as CFOs. We need to frequently and more and also, sorry, we need to frequently engage with masses such that there is appreciation of technology. We can't wait until the world is moving at 10 GB speed, internet speed. No, even with the current 4G speed, so some areas it is 3G internet speed. The technology is there. There is the ownership of mobile phones. I think by age, the biggest number is in Africa. There is just platform. I think what is lacking is the slowness and priority. You find that most young people between those young people in the age of 25 years are on internet. But on which platforms are they on? Most of them are on Facebook. They are on Facebook not to market their produce or their skills, but they are there to say hi, to look for a picture and say good pose, nice smile. See, and some of them from Facebook, they are going to WhatsApp to share sex tapes. See, the technology is there, but how are we using it?
Okay, Santiago,
That
what
would
do
be
you
my submission.
I'm so happy about the expression of my brother.
Yeah.
It's true. I think we have to say thanks to the founders or the people, scientists who have discovered all those things that we are now today enjoying. And also, I can say yes, the technology is here, but some of the problem also contributing to the slowness of achieving those technology in Africa is one, corruption. Let me see for an example. Um, Also, this politics also disturb a lot of development. Every government, when this government comes, they have their own priority. What this past government have set aside, when they come, they have their own priority. They forget about it and think about another thing. For example, for us here, we have what they call fiber optic cable, which they brought, but up to now, it's not in existence. Instead, they said they have launched it. They have launched it, but we are still having problem with internet connection. Honestly, so these are the things. And when now we have only, let's say, 2 or 3 years more, if we did not achieve this, and fiber optic cable in Sierra Leone, now another government is coming, and the other government who is coming maybe have another priority, leaving this one aside and then taking another step. So these are the kind of problem that are really affecting us. So as my brother also said, we have people who using Facebook and other things just to advertise themselves, but not their skills. There are other people who also think like they want to advertise their own product, but they do not have the skill to use Facebook or to even use Twitter or other things. They don't have the skill.
So,
So yeah, so these are the kind of problem we are having. I know you are having this one.
so are we saying that the young people actually, they are exposed to this technology, they have access to it, but they don't actually use it for, for good?
Yeah.
Like, okay, the first question came from Abasi from Unyime Abasi Essien, and he asked, what's the place of Agenda 2063 in the Sustainable Development?
Okay, the place of Agenda 63 in sustainable development, I think it is a continuation.
Agenda 2063.
Agenda 2063, right? I think the sustainable development goals will be running until 2030. I think Agenda 2063 is just looking beyond the Sustainable Development Goals. The other one is just a bigger plan, and post 2015 development SDGs are running for just 15 years. I think it is feeding into each other.
Okay, then we'll take the third question that I have. Samuel Karanja asked, "What's the practicality of a self-sustaining Africa?" Mabere?
The practicality
Yes.
is within partnership. Partnership with local business, local enterprise, local investment. Because Africa is blessed with enough resources to make a start and boost the development in Africa. What has been happening is that our government more attention to aid that is coming to Africa, ignoring revenue and resources being generated within Africa. And we are saying, as a way of achieving the SDGs, we should shift our attention a bit and look at what is being generated, what is being invested within the continent. I think there is so much that we have been losing out, and so there is so much that we can achieve and collect within the continent for us to reach where we want to reach in the SDG framework.
Then finally, Berry, the other question is,
yes.
Are the African governments, are they really committed to the development agenda in Africa?
I think by the fact that they agreed to provide an input through the common African position, I think that is good enough a gesture to show their commitment to the development framework. Otherwise, they would not have come up with the common African position. To me, I look at that as a gesture of commitment, a gesture of determination, and an opportunity for Africans within Africa and outside Africa to follow that up and ensure that it is realized.
Okay. As we discussed earlier, we said that many young Africans have access to internet. Different platforms like Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and other social media. Now the question is, Maberi, do you think that social media has a big role to play in achievement of the SDGs? Can we as the young people harness the power of social media to actually achieve the SDGs?
I think social media is the new microphone to every event. You see, like any event, be it a birthday party, wedding, any event needs a microphone, and social media is the microphone. It is through social media that governments can listen to what the nationals are saying, especially the young people. And also, social media is providing a platform to advertise what young people are producing, to advertise the skills that young people are achieving every now and then. Social media is very central in this. That is why I have come to know that most of even government departments have opened up social media pages like Facebook, and some others are going into WhatsApp. So social media is the new tool. We can't do without it. Yeah. It is very central in every development.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah.
do you think that social media is something that we as as young Africans can harness towards achievement of the SDGs?
Yes, social media is very good for us, and as we are now talking here today, hadn't been the possibility of this hangouts through Google, we will not be able to meet and discuss all what we are discussing today. And we already know during the launching of the Action 2015 in January what happens when different people around the world, 180 countries using social media to advertise, to tell people exactly what they. But I would say it's not just the end, and it is not enough, because if you look at how many people in the provinces that are not, I mean, that are not, they don't have access to internet, even WhatsApp. Not all of them have the kind of phone to be able to go into WhatsApp or Twitter or those of the other things. So, but it is a very good network to bring people who already know it, so that they can take it to the people who does not know it or who does not have the capacity. So it's very good that the social media is available and we can able to use it to ensure that we achieve our sustainable development goal. And young people can also have more capacity and a means of sharing information that are kept by our government secret. So we can able to share them among, to ensure that we are capacitated to be able to hold our government accountable, and also other people who are represented by government in different constituencies and community level.
Okay, Santege, I'll ask you this because Maberi already answered, but what do you think is the practicality of a self-sustaining Africa? Are we ever going to have a self-sustaining Africa?
Self-sustainable in Africa, it's a very difficult one, but I'm sure we can. How can we? It's about we have the resources, a lot of resources that will enable us to become self-sustainable. But what we lack is about the skill of how to use those resources to become useful to us. We don't have the technology to make all those resources to become useful to us. We don't have the added value or the skill to make it more added value to be able to, sell it to other countries, and they can able to use it. And because these are the problem that we normally lack when we are producing goods, and other countries and asking for the protection and also the prevention of those goods, if they are really healthy or not, the kind of preservation of those goods, making it more, available to other countries, and also other countries will be able to really accept it into their country, to ensure that their people, their citizens, able to use it or buy it to use. These are the kind of problem we have in Africa. And if we have those kind of tools, skills that will enable us to become self-sustainable, like in terms of, I mean, creating industry to make sure that we're able to produce more goods for ourselves, it's good. And it will enable us to become sustainable. But these are the kind of problem we encounter. So if we are equipped enough, we can be able to become self-sustainable.
Uh, okay, now I'll now ask you individually, specifically with your organizations,
Mm.
what have you been doing towards the realization of MDGs, and now after 2015 towards the realization of SDGs? What exactly do you do with your organization?
For our organization, currently we have about 10 organizations we are managing in terms of under this Ebola on the health issue. We support 10 organizations. We have trained them, and also we now collecting data after the sensitization and the research we did. We are collecting data now together to put them together, and we are also working on education. We do construction. Currently, we are constructing at the George Brooks School, which is Temple of Faith Primary School. If we look at our Facebook page. You will see our projects going on there, and also we are now on the final phase. We've just finished the third phase. We are now on the final phase. So we hope to start soon, this before the month, before next week, I'm sure. And also, there is another community called Krube. We are also trying to start a construction project there um, by next month, so that we can able to contribute to the education for children, because we are dealing with directly with vulnerable children in those communities, and also women. Most of our projects are like we focus mainly on education and also capacity building. So we like sensitize people in terms of and health issue, and also we sensitize, we capacitate them in terms of human rights as well, for them to know their right and to be able to contribute to national development or at community level. So on sexual and gender-based violence as well. And every year we coordinate like more than 5 to 6 international volunteers who normally come and support part of our project, and also giving their own knowledge to ensure that we achieve our goals.
Uh, Finally, Santiago, what do you think are the key challenges to a self-sustaining Africa? What's the what's the main thing that's hindering Africa from becoming self-sustainable?
One is the technology, because, and also we lack capacity, the skills, the tools to ensure that we able to make use of our goods or our resources. Because most of the companies that are coming, they only take it from here, and then they take it to their country, and then they do all the process there. So if all those companies are like able to do all the process here, and using our people to train them to be able to also make, I mean, learn how to process them, will be able to become sustainable. So one of the challenges are like lack of capacity, the skills for young people to be able to participate.
Oh,
And also another thing is corruption, because corruption in the sense, many projects or people who are trained or taken from here to another country to be trained to be when they come back, so that they can able to impact other people. Most of the time, even if they are given a startup, when they come here, they will not do anything. They just keep down silently and then take what they have given to them into their pockets. Nothing happened. So these are the kind of problems and challenges we are also facing. For example, as you people heard from BBC, what has happened when we are other organizations and individuals are giving money to prevent this deadly disease, Ebola. People use those money for just for themselves. They can't even account for it. So all these are the kind of problem we are facing in Africa that really deter us from become sustainable.
um, you know, thank you very much, Santiago. I hope that other organizations, and even including your organization, I hope we're going to try and overcome these challenges so that we can move forward towards development. Maberi,
Lost you people.
welcome back. So the question I was going to ask you is, what does your organization do specifically towards the achievement of first MDGs and now SDGs? What exactly do you do at the community level?
Pardon?
I'm asking you, what do you do, as Francis organization, to help Africa move towards sustainability, for the achievement of SDGs? What do you do specifically? What activities are you involved in, Maberi? I think we lost him again.
Yeah, correct.
Uh, so Probably Santiago, you can give your closing remark. What would you want to tell other young people who are actually not involved in who are not involved in
Sorry,
development
come
work and
again. I didn't pick the question.
Maberi?
Am I
Maberi?
back now?
Yes, you are. Yes, you're back. So I'm asking,
Okay.
what do you do with your organization as or as an individual towards driving Africa to sustainability? What activities are you involved in to make sure that SDGs are actually achieved? Baberi, hello. So Maberi, so it seems that we're losing him. So probably Santiago can just give you closing remarks. I mean, I'd actually wanted you to. What would you tell other young people, other young Africans out there who are actually not involved in development work or in community work? What would you tell them?
Thank you very much for all our discussion for today. And no matter the kind of challenges we have with connection, but we manage to put things together and everyone able to contribute. We know others we are unable because maybe one or two things happen on the way that enable them to be part of this meeting today. I want to tell young people that they have the capacity. They have to trust their skill. Whatever level they are, they can still contribute to the sustainable development of this Action 2015. And doing a job like, let's say, cleaning, you are also contributing because you are one. If you are cleaning your community, you are driving away health hazard issues.
Maybe it is clear now.
Yeah, yeah. So you are driving away health issue. If you are if you are if you are cleaning at your compound or rather working in any institutions, your skill, your contribution will also enable other people to succeed. For example, we are doing construction. We are capacitating, trying to make sure that young people who are not able to access, who do not have access to education, or who do not have support from other people to enable, or from their people to enable them to achieve their education, we are contributing now to make sure they succeed in their education. I tell you how I started my organization, you will not believe it. But today, I'm supporting over 300 children, and I'm paying currently 9 teachers. And I'm sure by the end of this year, we'll go up to more than that. So young people should have the power at least to believe themselves that yes, they can make it and they can contribute to their national development and international as well.
Uh, Thank you very much, Santiago. So there you've had it. Africa has had, it's quite fair share of problems, but we've agreed here today that so the MDGs were faced with different sorts of challenges. They actually contributed a lot towards the development agenda. And now, as we look at post 2015 and the development agenda, we see an Africa that is actually very active, young people that are actually active. We see a global citizenship, as has been mentioned by the two guests that we've had today. So the challenges that we actually expect towards realizing SDGs are something like technology, lack of skills, and then lack of the necessary tools, and then corruption at the different levels of government and other organizations within Africa. So despite these challenges, there's a lot of energy going on, and young people are actually rising up, to actually be involved in this activity. So we're very excited about the prospect of having a self-sustaining Africa, in the post-2015 development agenda. So I want to thank our guests today, Francis Mabere from Uganda and Santiago from Sierra Leone. It's been a very, a very great pleasure having you here and learning from you. And I wish you all the best in your in your different capacities, in the different sorts of things that you do. And we hope to keep talking, to keep engaging. The conversation goes on. You can actually find these people online. You can follow the conversation at our Facebook page, NAID, and you can also follow us on Twitter at NAIDinfo with you can give us suggestions. You can ask questions and we'll have them responded to later. It looks like Maberi is back. Maberi, looks like we lost him.
Yes.
Maberi, if you will, please give your closing remarks. Maberi?
Yes, please.
If you will, please give your closing remarks.
Oh, well, thank you very much for hosting us, and I appreciate this is an opportunity to speak to the global citizenship. I would also, in the same spirit, encourage each one of us to invest energies in making sure that these discussions go on. This shouldn't be just one of them, but it should be many of them. I thank NIDE for providing us this opportunity, and especially on behalf of Action 2015, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation, and I'm looking forward to sharing this hangout to the global citizenship. Me and you we and them, we can make a better world.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mabere and Santiago. So we wish you all the best from me, and let's keep working towards sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.